Hi, everyone. I hope you're not getting sick of me. This is my second Malkin Live, hashtag Malkin Live broadcast I'm bringing you today, but there is so much news and you need to get the straight scoop. You're not getting it anywhere else. As many of you know, on Sunday, I held a little Defend Our Monuments rally in front of a Union soldier, the founder of my adopted hometown, Colorado Springs, and about 100, maybe even more than 100 brave souls joined me. We were very fortunate. It was a peaceful gathering, which is what we intended from the very beginning, exercising our First Amendment rights to peaceable assembly. The problem, of course, in America is that you just never know when you're going to be risking your own life in exercising your constitutional rights. And about 24 hours after our little event in Colorado Springs, there was a rather violent mob of people intent on bringing down a statue in Albuquerque, New Mexico, at a place called Tiguex Park. And if many of you were tuned into my late night, oh my goodness, it was past midnight live stream with a woman who was there to peacefully defend a statue of a Spanish explorer, Juan Oñate, you know that things took a very ugly and dangerous turn when many of those mobsters started going after the peaceful counter protesters. And Esther Rivera was there, witnessed it. She was subjected herself to a physical assault. One of the people that was in this mob tried to take her phone, did take her phone, and she was able to get it back. But of course, as is now known nationally and internationally, one of the men who was also there to peacefully take a stand in defense of the statue, a man named Steven Baca, was set upon by that same mob. They beat him over the head with a skateboard. There's viral video of it that everyone can see. And he was forced to use armed self-defense. And he was taken into custody, initially charged, and we'll talk about all of the charges and all the latest machinations and shenanigans that are going on with that, with one of his lawyers, who is Diego Esquivel. Hi, Diego. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
So where is Stephen right now?
So Stephen is still in custody. He's at the Metro Detention Center, the main jail facility that services Bernalillo County, which is part of Albuquerque. He was originally charged with ag assault, deadly weapon with a firearm enhancement. That he was set to have his first appearance. That would have been Wednesday, and the charges were amended, and the district attorney's office filed with a motion to have him detained. The court's own system found him to be eligible to be released on his own recognizance. So the bond system out here changed a couple of years ago. So now the DA, if they want to try to hold somebody pending trial, they have to file this motion. So that hearing is going to be set for Monday morning. So we'll go in. They have to show by, I believe the standard's clear and convincing evidence that he's a danger to the community, he's a flight risk, that the court needs to specially order for him to be to remain in custody.
There are a couple of things that were cleared up immediately, thanks to a press release that one of Stephen's other lawyers had released earlier this week. And I just want to read from it and then get you to flesh some of it out. There's a lot of confusion surrounding this case, and the full facts need to come to light. First, Mr. Baca is not a member of the New Mexico Civil Guard. This case is not about the Civil Guard or the Civil Guard's conduct at the protest. Mr. Baca is currently in jail on a complaint that was filed charging the shooting incident that has been widely reported during this week's protest. And now the DA's office had filed a new information in the case and had chosen not to charge the shooting portion of the case, apparently to conduct further investigation. That is appropriate. We agree with that decision, and we welcome a full investigation into the facts. We believe strongly that the totality of the facts show that this case involves Mr. Baca's right and exercise of self-defense. And this is what I believe is so important for people across America to understand, because Mr. Baca's case is not just some local, regional, or provincial incident. This involves, I think, every citizen's right to armed self-defense. This is what it's really about. And you know what it's also about, I believe, Diego? I watched Juan Williams on Fox News, a channel that I worked for almost 20 years, get on TV yesterday and state point blank that, quote, Stephen Baca was a white supremacist. And I want you as one of his lawyers to respond to that.
As his attorney, we have to obviously take a much different stand. When you have a criminal defendant, a lot of times your politics go out the window. Mm-hmm. And we're hoping that we can get this case for people to see it not as a political statement of one side over, it's not progressives or supremacists or this or that. Everyone wants to talk about basic human rights. Self-defense is a right that you have to protect yourself. The people who are most vocal and the people who are speaking out are sometimes the people who have the least to say. So many people are keyboard warriors, jumping on and just coming up with things to say and make this to get people outraged at what happened with Mr. Baca. But at the same time, nobody's paying attention to what happened to Mr. Baca. Yes. And we're asking for people, you're going to have patience. I mean, I could probably start right now watching video footage from that night from people who were there. It would probably take me through nonstop till, his hearing on Monday. And there's so many angles. There's a group here called ABQ Raw that goes to a lot of protests, and they film everything. I think they have several hours worth of audio video that, unedited, that needs to be gone through, and people are going to see the whole story.
Yes.
They make it sound like Mr. Baca coordinated with with the New Mexico Civil Guard to go out there and rough up a bunch of people who were there peacefully. And I'm not going to give you the story of what it is today, mm-hmm. but I'm telling you that the narrative that's there is wrong.
Yes.
And that's the big thing. To call him a white supremacist is just jumping to conclusions. If it's clickbait, if you want to draw people to you, if you want to enrage people and get people to pay attention to you, knock yourself out. Yeah. But ultimately, you're going to be proven wrong. If as a journalist you don't care about that, then keep doing what you're doing. Otherwise, go try to get some of the other people who are there. Nobody's reaching out to them. They're not as interesting as the story of armed militiamen roughing up a bunch of people who were there peacefully.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's definitely a case of smear first, facts later. And I think that's why it was particularly disturbing to me. It's one thing if keyboard warriors or people who are explicitly political agitators are, locking in a false narrative and spreading it. But for someone who's a journalist, and, I've known Juan for 20 some years now, and he prides himself on his long career as a mainstream journalist, to baldly state something like that and not care about the facts. I just find it really revolting. Speaking of the facts, just reading further from the press release, the video of the incident shows Mr. Baca being chased and struck with a skateboard by one assailant, being pursued while he was backing up, shouts in the crowd to kill him, quote unquote, being tackled and struck, and then being confronted with another assailant who was wielding a knife in a menacing manner towards him. With multiple assailants attacking him with weapons, Mr. Baca at that point had no choice but to defend himself using force. And just to point out and remind people who had tuned into my live stream that late night on Monday, Esther Rivera had also said that the mob was shouting these inciting slogans, that they accused her falsely of being a quote unquote cop, and then did the same thing to Steven Baca. He is not a cop. Is that correct?
No, he's not.
Right.
There's no law enforcement there. He wasn't there as a law enforcement guide. He wasn't there to uh, uh, intimidate. He wasn't. I mean, I think it's safe to say that it's going to come out that him and some friends were going there to watch this happening. There is multiple layers to this, from my understanding. I mean, there is a group that had a peaceful prayer service much earlier, and then that group has sent out word saying that they are shocked and appalled that that there's violence at their thing. And I don't think that those individuals ever thought that it was going to go that far. They literally wanted to draw some attention to an important thing for them, and I think everybody would support that. But as it went on, then the pickaxe come out and the chains, and people want to tear down the statue. I need to look more into it, but I was hearing from somebody that it was commissioned by a Mayor Marty Chavez. That would have been more almost 20 years ago, maybe, and there was like, I thought, some means of not having it specifically represent Oñate because of what people thought was questionable behavior by him. I'm not defending any of that. Like that's
Right.
that has nothing to do with it. But things just escalated. There's, like I said, the video is going to show that the people that they say peaceful. I mean, I don't know how you're going to line up peaceful with pickaxe and chains. I mean, even if they're not going to be to throw people away, I mean, I guess you could peacefully tear a statue down. I don't know. Now, because these people are pulling down the statues, I'm not saying, oh, well, then that just makes anything that happens after that okay. That's not it at all. The original. I don't know if you've seen the original criminal complaint that was filed. You got that? It's an interesting read because I mean they show that time after time Mr. Baca was trying to de-escalate the situation, was trying to remove himself from the situation, was trying to avoid everybody. But if you listen to some of them, there's at one point somebody yells out, "He's a cop! Quick, get him!" I don't really understand that. They're identifying that this person is a cop, so because they're a cop, they want to go get that person and beat them up. I don't. If that's what you really think, I don't understand the logic behind going for that. Right now, obviously, we have concerns about a charge coming from the shooting, but right now he's not charged with that. It's a felony level assault for intending to cause great bodily harm, an unlawful carrying of a weapon, and I think two petty misdemeanor assaults, other assaults.
Yeah, just to clarify for people as well, too, the original criminal complaint was filed on the 15th, and then the news came out. What was it, the next day or within 48 hours that the DA had decided to initially drop that what is it, the aggravated battery with a deadly weapon charge? Yes, right. So people don't understand this. They thought that after that story came out that this was over. This is not over, people. I need you to understand that Stephen is currently in prison, and this is not going away for him, in large part because, as I said, this is not a local case. This is blown up into an international case, and there are many vested interests that want to try and make sure that the mob prevails against him.
And obviously, from our standpoint, we're saying, we're getting it out there that there's still a lot to do in the case. Our governor got on, I don't remember I think it might have been MSNBC, Fox, I don't remember who it was, and said that, that they're having the state police come in and take over this. There's so many layers of just drama surrounding this case from other things, that we now have a new agency that's the lead investigators on the case. The city police who responded, who were first on the scene, happened within the city limits. They've basically been I'm still not sure why they've been kind of ousted from this, but state police is now doing it. I know that state police is conducting interviews. They're putting up flyers. They're looking for more people to talk to who were there, which is going to be interesting to go through and read each one of those, because sometimes you have to really question a witness's recollection of what happened, especially if they're fired up about something.
Yes.
Especially if they if their own beliefs are kind of crawling into it. Obviously that's where we come in to really test that and push that to see, okay, does what you say match up with the all this footage?
Yes.
That's going to be a big question. There's going to be that. They're not going to easily. This isn't something that they're tucking away in the drawer for a few days till it calms down, and then they're just going to leave it alone. There's going to be a lot of investigation, because a lot of people have already bought into one story, and they're going to expect that to come to fruition. So they're going to be in people's ears, and we're hopeful that once everyone sees what we see, that they're going to come to the same conclusion, which is that charge should stay away.
Yeah, and I just want to talk about some of the extraordinarily exculpatory wording that's in that original criminal complaint. And you can see why there are many vested political interests that want this to be rewritten. So this is from the original criminal complaint. And I'm just going to read some of the descriptive information here. The cell phone footage was captured of Baca leaving the area. He was leaving. He was preemptively withdrawing from the scene as the mob was agitating and getting ready to pull down the statue. And then it says, an undercover police detective stationed in the area observed several members from what appeared to be the main protesting group pursuing Stephen on foot while he backed away from them, utilizing pepper spray to douse the oncoming crowd. Stephen continued to retreat away from the crowd while walking quickly backward and holding up his hand with his palm toward the crowd as if to separate himself from it. And of course, that video has gone viral. The group appeared to, and this is the adjective that's in the criminal complaint, maliciously pursue Stephen, with several of the crowd's individuals physically striking his body with their hands and legs. And it goes on. The idea to me, Diego, that he is still sitting in jail right now with this description of what actually happened, an honest, accurate one, just boggles my mind. And it is, I mean, I would be so troubled and fearful and praying if I was his family, knowing that he has become essentially a political pawn in a much larger playing field.
I mean, it is difficult. It's easy for everybody to comment on the criminal justice system and what they think should happen and who should be in custody and who should be out of custody. But I can tell you that from the people I talk to who actually are under investigation or who are facing charges, it's a much different thing when it's you.
Yes.
There's lots of things in theory that might work out. And it's just, I will say that the DA's office they're doing their job. I mean, I was a DA for 7 years in a couple different locations. I get that you have to do your job. We believe that it was a good call to drop that charge, because, I mean, the original criminal complaint lays out quite a bit of information as to there being a serious question of whether or not there's a self-defense. And yeah, lots of people say, well, you have to admit that you did it and then you can defend yourself. Well, if the DA doesn't believe that they can prove the charge, they're ethically obligated to not charge it. And having to do the investigation is the right thing to do. They're filing the motion to keep them in. I can't say why they made that decision. That's not my concern. we can theorize all we want, but in the end, there's only a few people in that office who probably know the actual answer. And there is going to be backlash no matter what happens. Nobody's going to be happy with the outcome because there's going to be somebody who thinks something else should happen.
Right.
That's the difficult part in all this.
This started out, this war on statues and monuments, with grievances against Confederate statues. And then it was Christopher Columbus. And then, as I mentioned in the introductory remarks, then it was Union statues. And last night in Portland, it was George Washington. And, that's why peaceful people have chosen to put themselves out there and take this stand, because they know that, we've gone down this horrible, slippery slope. Anything is fair game now. And one thing I did want to ask you as we wrap up here is the responsibility of the local government there. There had been a heads up about this protest, and Esther Rivera mentioned that she had written to city leaders and warned that things might get out of hand. So it's interesting because the criminal complaint noted that there was an undercover police detective around, which means that they were watching this unfold. As a lawyer, are there civil liabilities issues there? And I know that of course there's a lot of immunity protections that they enjoy, but not if they knew in advance, right?
Well, you can sue anybody for anything. It's just a matter of who's going to do it, who wants to pick it up. One thing about that is that generally the government has the largest pockets. So that there might be protesters who say that the government didn't do enough to protect them there, that this armed militia which again, Stephen had no connection to or no idea about, could have done that. It just goes on and on and on. I mean, there is a crowd there that, some are asking for a police presence to protect them, yet they're yelling out, "He's a cop, get him." I don't know where it all rectifies. I do know that if people say that, the shooting happened because he was trying to protect a statue, that's not. You're going to find that that's not the case. Mm-hmm. That all of these things stem from it. That's why we're saying just wait and get the whole story. And it's going to take some time for all that to get done, with probably, I don't know, at least 60, 70 people probably out there. You don't know how many of them are going to come forward and what they're going to say and what they heard or what they saw. You don't know that. There's several hours worth of video. All that stuff is going to come out.
Yeah.
Do I care about the statue being taken down personally? Again, my personal beliefs in all of this don't matter. This didn't happen because of that. Could this have been stopped? Maybe, but we don't live in a perfect world. Everybody expects this perfect outcome where everybody gets their way and everything happens, and it doesn't. And things go so wrong. And one of the reasons us in the family are trying to say we want some patience is we want to take a step back, because when you do things hastily, things don't work out. So if people want to push forward that this is that he was a supremacist, we can't stop that. But we're asking people to stop pushing any narrative and start reading complaints, start watching the videos. And we're not talking about quick cuts of videos. We're saying watch all the videos, watch the continuation of everything, where everything happens. Then let's start having some conversations. And we saw that you were doing a funding for Mr. Baca. There's going to be a lot of stuff for him to investigate. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be litigated in this case, because we're not talking a celebrity with a DWI that could eventually get swept under the rug or anything cares. He's not a celebrity, but this case is taking on a life of its own. And it's sometimes hard to control that thing that gets out of control. and take people back to what the facts are and to what actually happened.
Yes. And I think I can say this in a completely, transcendent, beyond partisan way. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the center or the right. If you care about the presumption of innocence, if you care about due process, if you care about the First Amendment, not just the Second Amendment, this case is incredibly important. And I have launched a crowdfunding campaign at Fundly. It's at fundly.com/stand with Stephen Baca. There's the URL right there. I'm asking people to use the hashtag stand with Stephen Baca. I know a lot of people who are regular viewers, fans, readers of mine were very taken and compelled by Esther Rivera's account of what happened. That's not getting out into the mainstream, not even on Fox, unfortunately. And if we're going to have a true accounting of what happened, an investigation of the facts, then you're absolutely right, Diego. People need to refrain from commenting in inflammatory ways and insightful with a C, right? Not the other kind of insightfulness. But the kind of incitement that we're seeing that passes for informed commentary about this case is not helping matters. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help anyone if you care about these core constitutional principles which are at issue. So I want to give you, the last word here before we close out. But I am pushing this crowdfunding campaign, and I hope that it is an appeal that goes beyond partisan lines. Hashtag stand with Stephen, fundly.com/stand with Stephen Baca. I'm doing this with the knowledge and consent and permission of his family and friends. Every single cent that is raised from the fundly.com campaign will go towards Stephen's legal defense. So thanks for your time, Diego, and we'll get some wrap-up comments from you.
Thank you. It's kind of awkward for his attorney to be like on the screen with the banner that's raising money to pay his own fees. I get that that's interesting. That's not why I'm here. We talked with the family. I was contacted by other people that were known shortly after this happened, and was in contact with people I knew and witnesses who took part of this. And this is an interesting case. As an attorney, I need to be neutral even for my client. That doesn't mean I'm not on his side, but sometimes you got to pull a client aside and say, hey, look, this sucks for you. Hey, look, you did this wrong. We're not even at that stage because we don't even know all the facts. I'm not even jumping to conclusions. Some people might say I'm just doing lawyer speak and dodging everything to not give anything. I have what I've seen. I've had limited contact with my client. COVID is wreaking havoc on us talking to our clients. And it is a state of the world we are in. This is going to be interesting on so many different planes. I'm curious to see how political angles come. I'm anxious to see how politicians are going to be, if they're going to be inserting themselves more into this case, if they're going to keep pushing something. I'm curious to see what charges are going to happen. Now, we can fight all those things and we can help them out as best we can. At the end of the day, it might come down to 12 people in a jury. And we're not going to know that for some time. But when the people who are closest to the case are saying there's still so many questions, I hope that gives everybody else out there pause to think about what they're saying and how they're commenting. Calling him a white supremacist when you know nothing about him other than some different circumstances that came together that day, I'm not saying it. I question why you would do that.
Yes.
You have the right to do that. Knock yourself out if you want to do that. But I don't think this night came about because people rushed to judgment, because people wanted to push an agenda, because people thought something. And I'm not just saying that was political. if you misinterpret something you see and it gets out of hand from there, if nobody has the restraint to pull back, we felt that Mr. Baca showed a lot of restraint that night, trying to leave the situation, trying to get out of there. There were several individuals that night that showed restraint in what they were doing, but not everybody did. But now we have the opportunity to show restraint, and let's dig into this and let's see where we come out. And then afterwards, I don't care what side you're on, maybe we go out and get a beer and people can talk about it with knowledge, with information, and it'll be productive. So let's get to that point. That's what I want.
I hope so. I'm praying for that. It is an opportunity, if you think about it, to avert the witch hunt trajectory that we've seen in so many of these cases, to treat people like human beings rather than cardboard characters in some theater narrative that's been played over and over and over again. Everybody says they want healing, right? Well, what's the best way to do that than to learn from past mistakes, to learn from past errors, and especially to learn from past wrongful prosecutions and convictions and wrongful persecution. And it starts with this simple fact. Stephen Baca is not a white supremacist. He can't be a white supremacist by the mere fact that he is a Hispanic man from a Hispanic family that has been in generations in New Mexico, right there. And from the family and friends that I've talked to, he is a kind and peaceful person who was not intent on doing the things that he has been accused of. And as the criminal complaint said itself in our discussion of it, he had been maliciously chased by this mob that physically assaulted him, and he was forced to defend himself, a right that is protected by the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment. Thank you, Diego, for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Please keep us updated. I will make sure I will do everything in my power to spread the facts and the truth about the case as it unfolds. And we'll be watching as this hearing happens. You said next Monday?
Yeah, this Monday at 9:30 sometime in the morning. I'm still trying to figure out the rest of my day, so I'm not looking forward to Monday just quite yet.
Yeah, I know. Another cup of coffee, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you speak with Stephen next, please know that he has a lot of people praying for him and supporting him, and we'll be doing what we can on our end to make sure that he has the help he needs with his legal defense.
And I'm sure, I know the family is very thankful for that, and thank you for having me on.
You bet. Take care, Diego.
See you later.